One of the things we want to talk about that's a very simple thing to do, but many times we find that people don't do it, and it seems simple, and that is to have yourself, I almost said Merry Little Christmas, have yourself a bullet point type of presentation ready when you make the contact with a person. If you're going to go meet them for lunch, if it's someone local, it's okay to have a pen and pad and just have bullet points, things you want to cover. If you're talking to people on the phone, it's good to have kind of a, how should we say this? You can have a script. The problem with the script is that you innately feel a need to stick to the script. And not every conversation, not every situation is going to follow that script as it's written. And so you're going to be all over the place. So in this type of a scenario, it's best to have a set of bullet points that represent the points you would cover in your presentation. That way, since it's bullet points, you have more leeway of attacking the presentation according to the needs of the person you're talking to. So you had a good word for it earlier. You said, tailor your presentation, tailor fit the presentation to the person. So let's say I was approaching someone like Caitlin. Okay. Let's say that she is, she's interested more in the product. You're not interested in the business per se. You're open to it. You're open. But that's not what you're looking for. So I would tailor my bullet points towards the product, the strength of the product, testimonials of the product, research on the product, and just how the product can help her for her situation. That's what I would tailor to. Now, let's say that Caitlin 2.0 is here and she's interested in the product only from the perspective of how that opens the door to the business, which some people are. They're like, well, I do want a good product. I don't want a cheap, lame product. I want a good product, but the product for me is the door opener. I want to get people into the business. Well, now I would only use the product to introduce the business. And then I would go through the points of why 4Life has the best pay structure, why 4Life's been around for so long with no competition. I would mention the leadership, which is very important, and where they come from, their track record, their mentality, their paradigm for the company. I would mention the pay structure and how it's fair and balanced. All of these things would target and tailor it to her if she was looking more for the business side of things. So
I really
you look like you got
that.
something to say.
Well, I was thinking that also when he said that it's okay to bring notes to like a local meeting, like don't feel uncomfortable about that. You can even just let them know, like, I just want to make sure that I cover the things that I wrote out. So then that kind of alleviates that like nervousness,
that awkwardness.
And
exactly.
I know sometimes having like the exact words to say can be a lot easier, so you know how to exactly word it. That's how I would word it.
Exactly.
To someone.
But it's just, you don't want them to feel like you're reading from a script.
Exactly.
And so you just want to say, these are just some things I wanted to cover that I feel like are important, and I just don't want, I don't want to get nervous or get off rambling and forget to cover these points. But that way they see you're not reading, hello, insert name, John, my name is insert name, you don't want that. What you want is someone, when they ask something and they say, well, I'm really more interested in the product, you do your bullet points and say, okay, let's not mess with this part. Let's start here with the product. And then you go through key things about the product.
I was thinking also that the My Shop rewards is a really good way to segue. Like if the person is mostly just interested in the product, then go through the points like Shayne said. And then at the end, you can even mention that you have the ability to earn My Shop rewards if you end up coming across somebody who could benefit from these products and you introduce them to the products. So you get basically an affiliate reward for introducing them. And then if you explain the rewards and you're like, basically for preferred customers, it takes a certain amount off of your order so every month it'll evaluate what rewards you have, and then it'll take that off of your order automatically. If they're like, oh, okay, well, is there a way maybe for me to make some money instead of something like that? Then you can kind of segue into the business part of it.
And you can tell them too that I've talked to people that say, well, I don't mind that. I would like to make enough money that I can give my product for free. And so that's a good way to do that, because what you're doing is you're saying, listen, you're not out there recruiting people for the business. You're not out there trying to make people get into your business, what you're doing is you're simply compensating for your own product.
Right.
So you're getting free product and you're helping people in the interim,
Yes.
you know, in the midway. So that's a great point. It's a great way to segue because it's such a natural thing because they're already using the product. They already like the product. They're just through osmosis telling people about the product,
Right.
just out of, you know, just because their excitement for it.
Mhm.
And if they get enough people ordering it, they're going to get their product free anyway.
Right.
So just let them know, hey, there is a reward involved here. If other people get involved because you've told them about the product, then you know you can earn enough to get your product free, and you can actually work it into a business to make more than that if
Right.
you're interested. If you're not interested, hey, at least you can get your product free or at a discount
Right.
because other people are using it.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
yeah, and these are things, like I said, on the bullet points, these are things you can cover.
Right.
You know, it's a good way to use these. That type of a point would be a great point to be a transitional point. Say,
Right.
this is something that it's a good way to, how would I say, it's a good way to probe them and find out if there is any interest in the business.
Right.
When you initially feel that their only interest is in the product.
Right.
This is a subtle and non-confrontational, non-aggressive way
Right.
to find out what their interest is. And if there is any interest in the business side of it, it's a nice, easy transition to make rather than saying, well, now we've talked about the product, let's talk about making some money.
Right.
Some people, that's a turnoff because some of them feel like the minute you start talking about it being a money-making thing or a business, they're not as interested in the product anymore, even though the product hasn't changed.
Right.
Their opinion of the company may change if you automatically make it all about the money.
Right.
So, you know, and the same is true the other way. If people are all about trying to make the money and all you're doing is harping your whole presentation on the product,
Mhm.
they start thinking, well, there's no money to be made here.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great product, but there's no money to be made. That's why you tailor it to the person. You
Right.
listen to what they're saying. You assess your prospect. You are aware of their needs and what their desire is with this business, what their passion is, what their drive is, what is their end goal with this business or product.
Right. Actually, I have a question.
Yes.
So I feel like when you talk about the product, credibility is top. Like,
Yeah, that's key.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what are some credible things that people could mention or at least look up, so you don't have to give them word for word,
Right. Yeah.
but like some things that they should put into their bullet list?
About the product.
Yeah.
Well, the products, that there's a countless amount of things you can do to prove the credibility of the product. Now, again, you want to tailor this because some people want just one or two really hot things.
Right.
They don't want to listen to a grocery list. They don't
Which
want to
my hot
hear
things I feel like would be like university studies. 'cause
Exactly.
People are very familiar with
Right.
university.
Yeah, when you mention Auburn University, you mention Mizzou or Missouri State University.
Weber State.
Weber, that was the other one. Yeah, I knew it was I was wanting to say Washburn, but that's here in Kansas, but Weber State. You mentioned some of these very credible, very well-known
Right.
universities, and that they've done studies not on components of our product, but studies on
The
our
entire
product.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the problem with a lot of network marketing, and it's okay to let people know this because people need to know this. They need
Right.
to know this and understand it. Many, many times when a network marketing company says we have research going back 50 years on our product that proves it works.
Mhm.
90% of the time when you do the research yourself, it is a study that was not done. First off, it was not done on their product.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, it's typically done on a component within their product. Now they might say, well, our key component,
Right.
our key part of the product is what was studied. But then you need to look at what the study was done on,
Right.
because there was a company out at one time that said, our product has been endorsed by the United States Army. It was used and it was studied, and it's shown that it helps the immune system. What they were selling their product for and what the study was done on were completely opposite sides of the stick.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Was it tested? Was their key component tested by the United States Army? Yes. Did it show improvement? Yes. Was it improvement for the immune system? No. Was it an improvement in health? No. What was it studied on? It was studied on how quickly their body bounced back after heavy cardiovascular activity. So like they'd go on a 10-mile run, which is pretty tough.
Yeah.
They would use the product and they would compare it. They would do it without it and get a baseline. Then they would run and take it and see what the baseline was. And they found that they recuperated quicker, which makes complete sense because what they were selling was a type of egg protein. Well, any type of protein helps repair your body once you
Right.
broke it down. Because when you break muscles down, you're literally tearing the proteins and the fibers of the muscle, and then they repair it.
Right.
Okay. So was it done by the US Army? Yes. Was it done on a key component of the product? Yes. Was it done for what they said it was done?
No.
So don't just take everything at face value. And I'm saying that even in regards to us.
Right.
The cool thing is these studies, these universities that we just mentioned, these studies were done on our product.
Right.
They were done on transfer pad. They were done on
Right.
Pro-TF. They were done on these products that we have, these studies. They weren't done on the molecule that's in a transfer factor and see how it was done on our
Right.
product. So
Yeah.
that's something that I would really stick to point out about the legitimacy of our product, because that's something a lot of companies cannot say.
Right. And there's several studies in the PDR
Right.
where our products are listed, and
Mhm.
there's even our products are listed
Mhm.
in the PDR.
Yeah,
So that's another way you could
right. Yeah.
show credibility.
Exactly. So there's credibility in the medical industry by being in the PDR. There's credibility through research through these well-known universities. There's over 50 years of research on the key component. Now,
Right.
I'm saying that it's the key component, not our product, because our product was not available till 1998.
Right.
And these studies go all the way back to 1949.
Right.
So, almost a 40-year gap there. But those studies were what inspired David Lisenby to create the product.
And doesn't our product, our core component of our products, work the same?
Yeah, it's
as that
exactly
key
the same.
component? Right.
And the studies that were done promote what our product does.
Right.
It's not like the studies were done and then we twisted it and said, yeah, our product was tested and it does this. And
Right.
they're two different things, like that other study I mentioned.
Yeah.
Our key component of our product is transfer factors, or it's a leukocyte, blood cytokine in technical terms. And that's what a lot of the studies prior to 1998 were done on.
Right.
Now, in 1998, the initial study that we always quote that shows that there was a 437% increase in the immune system, more specifically the natural killer cell activity with the transfer factor, that was done, and there was a baseline created beforehand, and every nutritional product at that time
Mhm.
that was known for immune system influence by
Right.
boosting or modulating, whatever. Every product on the market that was a natural product at that time, the top ones were tested.
Right.
196,
96.
yeah. 196 of them, almost 200 products tested. The best ones were the ones that you always see in a study, because no point in taking the ones that did
Right.
very little. So, and the best one at that time was mangosteen, which is by a company called Zango. Mangosteen increased it by 86% over just a normal healthy immune system. And our product increased it by 437%. That's
Right.
5 times more, 500% more for you math geeks out there. So what we're saying is that study was done specifically on our product. Again,
Right.
this is not some study that was done and they threw our product in the mix because, oh, it works. It's talking about leukocytes.
Right.
So yeah, it's the same. No, this was done on our product.
Wow. That's
Okay,
cool.
so legitimacy of the products is one thing, studies is another thing. The type of places that studied it is what we're talking about with, that adds credibility to it.
Mhm.
Personal testimonies,
Yes.
that's a great one. But again, that's where you get into a gray area, because everybody,
Yeah.
people can say whatever they want to say, especially with the internet, people do that all the time and make stuff up. And it's, even though you're not supposed to, it takes a while to track it down because there's so
Right.
much going on out there.
Yeah.
Another thing great about it is the fact that our product, and this kind of gets into some of what I want to close up with. Our product is done completely natural. The cows are antibiotic free. There are people that are lactose intolerant can take it because there is no lactose in it. It's completely removed from it. It's a molecule that's bioidentical to the one that's already in your system. So you're not going to be allergic to it unless you're allergic to your own transfer factors.
Right. Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
At this point, I've not heard of that condition.
Because they're
anywhere.
ultra filtered. So
Absolutely.
the molecule that is lactose or whatever people are allergic to,
It's too large.
right, is way too large for the filtration that the product
Mhm.
goes to.
Yeah, and the filtration system and the filtration process is done through pressurizing the colostrum once it's into a serum, once it's been thawed, which I'll explain that. It's put into a tank and it's pressurized. and it is pushed through. The only way I can visualize it is pushed through essentially a shower head kind of situation, but it's so many thousand microns small. So it's like, I believe what they said was it was about 1/1000th the thickness of a human hair. So I mean,
that's itty bitty.
Yeah, but the pressure that is put into this tank squeezes that through, and the only molecules small enough to get through that filter are transfer factors and nanofactors.
Right.
That's it. Everything else, the molecules are too large, they won't go through. So you're only getting that molecule, and there's no way to be allergic to information, because that's the only difference between a cow's transfer factor and ours is the information.
Right.
That's it. The power of what it's able to do is elevated in a cow because they're exposed to things we aren't.
Right.
You know, let's face it, we're hot. We don't go out in the middle of a pond and relieve ourselves and then turn around and drink out of that pond.
Right.
And if we did, we'd be sick or dead. And you don't go by and see half the herd belly up dead. I mean, their immune system fights that every single day. It's, they're exposed to parasites we're not exposed to. They're exposed to spores. Everyone talks about anthrax. Anthrax is often called the cow disease because, it's in the ground, it's in spores, and cows graze, and cows can get it. But yet again, their immune systems, more times than not, they're fine. So these are things to keep in mind that prove the legitimacy of the product, that help to show that this is a cut above the rest. So, but really, when you're dealing with someone, especially someone who's very skeptical, I would really stick to the research. I would stick to the provable science, the provable studies that have been done, the university studies. There's even been studies done by governmental health agencies, one of them being Russia. I think there was some done, I think the initial studies that were done on the molecule itself back in the day were done in Italy, if I'm not mistaken. One of the big ones was from Italy. So, I mean, there's been other governmental health agencies and other universities worldwide that have been studying the molecule for years. So I would stick to that stuff, because that stuff adds legitimacy, it adds street cred, and it can be tracked. Anytime you get into testimonials, those are great. And some people would rather hear a testimonial, but testimonials are so hard to substantiate because it's all a matter of opinion. And even though I've seen some incredible things and I've told people about it and I've witnessed it firsthand, I know, even after talking to doctors, the only difference in this person's survival or not was transfer factor. Because they've dealt with the same condition with other people time and time again, always ends the same. Except this time it was different because of transfer factor. I've seen those situations myself, my own eyes, been involved, held their hand, thought they were gone. They came back, not came back, but their health turned around after using transfer factor. But unless someone's asking me, I don't go just blurting that out, because I mean, I'm not making it up, but I mean, they would have to believe me first. It's and when something seems too fantastical and too good to be true, then typically people assume it is, and they think, you're just trying to sell me something.
Well, and you have to also be very careful with that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, you can't really do it anymore.
No, because you have to, that's why sticking with the facts and the credible stuff is actually the best bet. Because you can't get in trouble for explaining things that 4Life explains. And they have product profile sheets you can go off of. They have product training with Dr. Brent Vaughn on the US sales team Facebook page, which I also always try.
Weekly, isn't it? Or bi-weekly?
Yep. I always try to share those into our Facebook page, the DiamondsR4Life Facebook page. So if you haven't joined that, go ahead and request to join. But I always try to share those in there. So there's content in those you can use. Get on your 4Life Connect app and go through. If you're wanting to focus on, for instance, if I made my warm market list and I'm like, okay, Susan and I are meeting at, the local coffee shop here in a couple days. So what I'm going to do is think about, okay, what pertains to Susan? Okay. Susan, I know she's going to be just like Shayne explained earlier. Susan is product minded. There's a possibility she might be interested in, the opportunity, but for right now, I'm going to get her being a product user and being a product of the product, because naturally we share, like Shayne said. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and be like, okay, so she's only interested in the product. Let me think of the things that Susan would be interested in. Well, Susan loves skincare. So I'll make that note. Maybe share about the skincare. Okay. Also the collagen. Oh, the collagen has a study on it. I can mention that. Let's see. She has problems with her gut health. So I'm going to definitely tie in the prebiotics. So I'm hitting on things that I know will be helpful, but also things that have studies behind that. So I can be like, you know, pushing that credibility to Susan. Okay. So then I'm going to be like, okay, so those are my top 3 things I'm going to hit on. I'm not going to overwhelm her. So I'm going to go to
which is important. Very important.
You don't want an information overload.
You don't just want a knowledge dump on someone, because it becomes not only can it be too much, but it can actually work against you. And they begin to feel like overwhelmed to the point like, how am I ever going to be able to do this? I can't.
And how can I remember all of this stuff?
And it just becomes a negative. It's better to sprinkle and let them ask you than to just dump too much on them, and then they have to kind of sort it out when you're off the phone, because it doesn't end well that way.
So my suggestion would be to take those few products, go to your 4Life Connect app, type in, you know, aqua, go through the different things that are on there for the aqua products. Go and type in prebiotics and see what's on there for prebiotics, and be writing down specific points that you want to make or touch on when you meet with Susan. And then you can dwindle it down from there. It's just going through the process of doing something like this. Go to the US Sales Team Facebook page and see what they have said about those specific products. Go to our YouTube channel. We have product training, so you can use things that are said on those product trainings. You can even, after meeting with Susan and you give her those little bullet points and she's interested in buying the product, you can even send her that link after you meet and be like, hey, here's a video talking about a whole bunch of stuff about the products that I mentioned, in case you're interested in learning more about it. Like, just be very simplistic, but
and
powerful.
Exactly. And again, what she just described there was exactly what we talked about at the top of this. And that is, she's tailoring it to Susan. She knows, she has an idea of, after talking to Susan before, what she's looking for. So you tailored the products, you tailored the information, you tailored your attack, so to speak, around everything that you knew were her bullet points, were her hotspots, so to speak. So, and then from there, like you said, then you can segue and see if there is any interest in anything further. But to start off with what applies to her is going to be the most effective. So this goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago in what Caitlin just mentioned with the warm market, is understanding and taking note of things about your prospects, especially warm market. Cold market is tricky because your first initial contact, a lot of times people aren't real forthcoming your first contact. If you're able to make them feel comfortable, make them feel good about what's going on, and you're able to get them to open up, then sometimes that will happen. I've had cold calls where I've been able to talk to people, and we identify a couple of things, they start opening up, and then they tell me enough information that now I have something more to go on. But most of the time on a cold call, that you're lucky if you can keep them on there, get them into a presentation and find out what they're after, you're doing pretty good. Because a lot of times cold calls are just that, they're cold. And today's technology makes it harder if people don't recognize the number or recognize the name that pops up. Most people will either let it go to voicemail, or they just won't answer at all and just delete the voicemail. So as you get a hold of people through cold calling, you can then establish that rapport with people. So
I did get an idea just now from someone in the comments, Bob. He said, why not just point them to a video like this? So that's actually a super awesome idea. And you can mesh that idea with the idea of making bullet points for each category that you might be touching on in a presentation.
Great suggestion, Bob.
So product would be a category, compensation plan, how someone gets paid would be a category, the type of company that we are, the leadership that we have, you know, take those categories and then add bullet points underneath of those categories. And you can make a tool or a sentence or something.
Right.
What you're trying to do is, like we talked about before, it's a tackle box, right?
Right.
When you're
Yep.
fishing, you have a whole bunch of, what did you
Lures.
call them? Lures.
And bobbers and weights and
Right.
hooks and all kinds of things.
All those things that you
Right.
use for different types of fish.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you're filling up your tackle box with
the
different
right lures.
points.
Yeah.
Yes.
The right
So,
bait.
yeah, the bait and the lure could be a video.
Right.
It could be a sentence that you say to the person,
Right.
a point that you touch on, a PDF that you're going to send them.
Right.
Your bullet points can be anything. Just make sure that they are credible, simple, and powerful.
Right.
Because you only have, I mean, it's sad to say, but you only have a little bit of time to make a really good impression.
Right.
So you want to make
Yeah.
sure whatever impression you're giving is a great one.
Right. And typically speaking, when you're talking about cold calls, if you get 5 minutes with a person, you're doing pretty good.
Right.
If you get someone really interested in what you're saying, or really, you touch that hot spot for them, you might get a 10-minute conversation, and on average, I would say most cold calls are less than 5 minutes.
Right.
And that's a good one. That's
Pointing them to
one.
something.
Yeah. And that's one where they say, hey, I like this, call me back or send me some info. Okay. And that's usually pretty good. Again, on warm market, that's going to vary, because if you know the person, you probably already have kind of your foot in the door. So
I
it's a
feel
little
like
easier.
cold calling is because it's more like, it's okay. We talk about social media marketing and how we want it to be attraction marketing, not
Right.
interruption marketing.
Right.
I feel like cold calling is kind of in the middle, or more so interruption marketing.
Yeah, it's closer.
So-
Most people consider it more of an
Yeah,
interruption.
you have to be a little bit more respectful in the way
Yeah.
that you approach people,
Yeah,
and more
absolutely.
quick. So
Yeah.
I know I've
Streamlined,
listened,
yeah.
to your calls before, and the thing that we always suggest to people when they make cold calls is that you get in, you do the niceties, you
Mhm.
let them know how you found them as a
Right.
lead, and then you hit on a couple points. You ask them if you can send them some information,
Right.
because they don't want to be on the phone.
Right.
So you send them somewhere. Like, that is the thing. You don't give
Yep.
them a presentation over the phone. I mean,
Right.
you can, but that's like
They have to be asking too.
2% of the time.
Usually
Right.
you say, do you have time? I would like to share some information about my opportunity with you. Is now a good time?
Right.
And sometimes people say no, and I'm not interested. Sometimes people say, well, I'm right in the middle of something. Can you call me back at this day, this time? So you write it down, you call back this day, this time. So, I mean, it's, yeah, but you're very right. What you want to do is you want to get in, get out, nobody gets hurt. So you want
With
to,
warm market, like
Yeah.
you're saying, totally different.
right.
But that's what we've talked about before. Different avenues require different approaches.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Like I mentioned before, if you are very familiar with a specific avenue in prospecting and you want to venture into something else,
Mhm.
just stick with the thing that you know and learn the things that you want to learn. Don't go 100% in this direction, because it's a completely different and separate way of going about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
totally different world.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to go, you want to play to your strengths, but also you want to make your weaknesses, turn them into strengths, but
Right.
that's going to take time. You don't want to throw yourself into your weakest area and decide for the next 100 calls, I'm going to attack them this way, even though I'm not great at this.
Yeah.
That's basically those 100 are sacrificial lambs, because you're fumbling through. It's better to, stick with what stick with your strengths, and then work, like you said, work on those weaknesses, or find a way to segue those weaknesses into what you're doing, to where it becomes less of an awkwardness.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, those are some great things. But yeah, there's so much involved with prospecting. As you can see, each week we're hitting little different things. We're hitting things, the psychology of it. We're hitting things on principles. We're hitting things on the simple things that we should be doing that we forget to do. We're talking about things that maybe we've never thought to do, that you think, how's that even apply? And then we show you how it applies. The thing about prospect training is that it's a very, very broad spectrum,
Yeah.
because there are so many different variables of medium that you can use. Everything from social media to print marketing, to cold calling, to, email blasts, to, I mean, there's just there's a countless amount of ways to contact people.
Right.
And that gives you options, but it also means that you can't necessarily be a master of all of those.
Yeah.
That's a lot to figure out. There's a lot of people that just are a little more old school, and as big as social media is, it scares them to death. They don't know, they don't want to venture out to it. So they stick with postcards, they stick with things like that. And those things work for those people. Someone your age or, between our ages would be more, electronically minded, and they would want to do it through other methods. They want to do social media, they want to do email blasts, they want to do text messaging type of blasts and things that you can do now. They want to do more things like that where there's less involved with them physically have to do anything.
Right.
They set it up and it does its own thing.
Right.
Bots. A lot of time people use bots as well. People from, my era or even older than my era, that's scary to them. They're like, I don't know about that. I know if I put a name on a postcard and I put a stamp, I know it's going to them. I know they're going to get it. Now, whether they respond or not, that's in their court, but I know that it got to them.
Right.
I don't know with this email stuff. I don't understand it. I don't know if it's, what does it mean it's in the ether? What does it mean it's in the internet? That makes no sense to me. So, you have to play to your strengths. Those people, I've told many people that said, man, that stuff scares me. I said, well, stay away from it.
Right.
Because honestly, it's everywhere, but also there's a learning curve to it. You can't, people say, well, I'm going to put up a website now because now I understand I'm going to put up a website and I'm going to be a millionaire. You know how many websites are out there? Billions of websites out there. So you're just a grain of sand out there. You have to do something to make yourself stand out. So, and that's true in all kinds of marketing, but yeah, that's why this training is like this, is we're hitting on different things in different ways. Sometimes you're going to hear something and say, well, that sounds like the call you did a month ago or the live you did a month ago. Well, yeah, but it's always a little bit different perspective, because you can say you can work at one principle, but give different sides of that principle, and it hits people completely differently.
And there's different layers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like an onion.
Exactly. I was going to say that. Yeah. Like layers of an onion. One thing we didn't cover on the bullet points is the support. Support is huge, because a lot of people, the reason they have bailed out of network marketing, the reason they have stopped doing this, because they got involved and they believed in the company, believed in the products, believed in the system, but had no support. And basically once they signed up and their money was in the bank for their upline, they were left to fend for themselves. And they try for a little while, they gain a little ground, lose more than they gain. And it's sad, but unfortunately that happened. That's a story we hear all too often that happens in the industry. So support is huge. But our biggest thing honestly was to focus on the different sides of a bullet point presentation, or having bullet points available for a presentation. And so, but one of those bullet points definitely should be support. So, well, we have gone forever. We actually have Philip saying, have a blessed night. So he's already ready to sign off.
Bye, guys.
He's like, later. So yeah. So, again, thanks everyone for being on here. We appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening to come to listen to these trainings. They are available to you, as you know, later down the road, or later once Facebook's done. They're shareable and everything. YouTube. Yeah, so you can always go on and check them out if you missed one, or if you heard something you want to run it back and hear it again. You can always do that. So next week, like I said, we will not be here because of the holidays. Yeah, not for prospect training. So have a very Merry Christmas, everyone. And we will talk to you again soon. And if you have questions, always feel free to hit us up in the comments section. You can also hit us up wherever. So again, thanks a lot. And we went
Frankie Shayne,
Kate Elaine, and we are out.